Thanks for tuning in to Weather and Earth 25's update for November 2023. This is Fire Rat, and I'm the creator of this channel, and also am providing you with some information about what can happen during this month of November. The past couple months have been fairly active for natural disasters around the world, and there doesn't seem to be any indication that November is going to slow down. In fact, this month is looking very powerful from all angles. And if you're new to my channel, I look at the dates that are coming up in the near future using the mystical practices of Chinese astrology and numerology, because this can actually help see which days could have higher risk for natural disasters. Chinese astrology is actually more complicated than it sounds. It changes day to day. And to give you an idea while I'm talking about this and giving you this introduction, here's the chart that I've made for November 2023. Some of you might have already seen this on Twitter, also known as X nowadays. I've been posting stuff on X the last couple months. Kind of been away from this channel for a bit, trying to, come up with a better way to present this. And I think this is going to be a new style that I'm going to be doing for prediction videos. But generally, this chart right here that you're looking at is a combination of Chinese astrology, numerology, and to a point the tropical zodiac, which is more like a seasonal thing where it gives a little extra punch to the majority of the month of November. But the real deal is how things change from day to day from a point of view of numerology and Chinese astrology. Chinese astrology is not just, limited to the year, but also it has a monthly cycle and also a daily cycle. And the way that these three cycles interact with each other actually helps us see the level of risk that could happen on that day based on Chinese astrology. And then, it goes from there. So all this is based on historical events. So over the years, I've taken a look at several natural disaster dates of the past, the very long ago past, hundreds, if not thousands of risk dates from before were analyzed, and there were disaster days, and I call them risk days now because what happened in the past can happen in the future again. It's a cycle. These things do repeat. In fact, things repeat exactly the same way they're repeating right now. With the Chinese astrology and the numerology, everything to a T repeats every 720 years. Yep, 720 years, guys. So it's like we're reliving 1303 right now. And also, since this is the Chinese year of the water rabbit, it's the rabbit is a 12-year cycle, so it happens every 12 years. But there's also 5 elements in Chinese astrology, so there's even a more deeper 60-year cycle at play here that comes and goes every 60 years. So we take a look in the past, and there's actually there's already been precedents in 2023 that happened in the past. About 240 years ago, in 1783, there was a disastrous earthquake in the Mediterranean in the southern Italy area, also known as Calabria. In 1783 happened during the dates February 5th and February 6th. Take a look at this right here. That's the event that happened then. And now fast forward to 2023, February 6th, devastating Turkey and Syria earthquake strikes. Same general world region. We're looking at the Mediterranean basin. It's on the eastern side this time around. Back then, 240 years ago, it happened on more towards the central part of the Mediterranean. And there's more events that have happened in these rabbit years. Not just the water rabbit types, but all different rabbit years that have happened a lot in November and December as well. Like these examples right here. Take a look at this. This event happened in the year 2011, had 2 earthquakes in Van, Turkey. There was an earthquake on the 23rd of October and then the 9th of November. Fairly bad event, but not as bad as the ones that come right after. In 847, we had this disaster. November 24th, major earthquake in this part of the eastern Mediterranean. Also known as the Near East. And then in 1759, once again, boom. Same general world area, the whole Near East area, giant disaster there with 2 earthquakes happening a month apart. One hit October 30th and the other one hit November 25th. The latter of the two was the worst one. devastated a lot of the cities on that side of the Mediterranean, including Damascus and Beirut. Hundreds of thousands of destroyed buildings, from what I've read, about 30,000 plus deaths. Could this happen again this year? It's a possibility. Chinese astrology shows this is a cycle that keeps repeating every 12 years, every 60 years, and even greater cycles within that cycle, That's basically how that works. And numerology, on the other hand, looks like this. This is November's numerology. This is a snapshot of how the numbers look for every single date. As you can see, this stuff is not easy to explain in one short video. It would take literally hours for me to give you a good explanation of how all this works. But if you want, feel free to pause the video right now and just analyze this chart. This is a numerology chart for November 2023, displaying the 3 different numerology phenomenons that exist that correlate most of the time to natural disasters. There's the 1789 phenomenon with the numbers in green. There's a 1322 phenomenon, which is in yellow-orange. And then we have a 1125 phenomenon, which has 11 in blue and 25 in red. Now on the left-hand side, you see the dates, November 1st all the way down through November 30th of 2023, and they're all different colors, depending on how intense the numerology is. And the color key's at the bottom, so you can see for yourself. So now we can take a look back at the chart, the Astro-Numerology chart, as I call it, for November 2023. And there you can see the numerology at the bottom there of the graph in green, with the blue correspond to Chinese astrology, and you can see how they both dance around each other as the dates go on. Whenever they go up, it means it's a stronger risk day. Whenever they go down, it's usually a lesser risk day. And if these two combine, where both point up, then we get a much higher risk day combined there, because both numerology and Chinese astrology are suggesting it's a highly risky day. For example, that's what happens on November 7th, November 4th to a point. These are high peak risk dates. And in case I haven't mentioned already, with this chart here, the yellow-orange line is where the main thing is at. The yellow-orange line is the sum of all the lines below it. And that horizontal line you see at level 6 is what separates a risk date from a non-risk date for the most part. But here in November, almost every single date is above level 6, so it's a high-risk month all around. And even those dates where it slips to, right below level 6, it's such a brief dip that you could even have events happening later in those days or very early in those very days. So, that's the thing. And interpreting this graph is fairly complicated, but it's something that I've already learned how to do over the years, and this is how I can make these experimental predictions for what can happen. As far as astrology and numerology is concerned, this is how the dates look, and you can see the shift in natural disaster risk, how it changes from day to day, where we have numerous peaks. And most of the time, you'll find most of the big events happen around these peaks. So, we could have something fairly important happen between the 4th and the 11th of November. We could have something around the 13th through the 20th of November, probably centered around November 16th. And then we have November 22nd through the 27th, which is another really powerful risk period, which is centered around the date November 25th, which is the peak risk date of that risk period, with some peak in the 22nd and on the 27th. So, since you guys won't have much time to be hearing on this video how I come up with the interpretations of this, this is how I interpret it. Take a look at these charts that I've made now for the locations of the world that we should be keeping an eye on. For example, here's severe weather, and this is a severe weather image here. You can see how this is a world map, and then there's areas here circled in different colors all around the world, and there's a big red right over the southern United States, and then there's some yellows in parts of Central Southern Europe and South Asia. Well, these are the more riskier areas that typically could see severe weather and tornadoes in the month of November. based on climatology now. See, this is not just astrology and numerology. We're also taking a look at other things here and there and putting them all together to try to make a fair forecast, or a prediction at least. These are the world areas most likely to have events in November, especially in the November like this one, where we have the El Nino phenomenon ongoing as well, making events more likely to happen in the southern U.S. with severe weather, more instead of it being further north. And at the bottom there, we have the dates and colors. And you can see some dates are in green, some dates are in red, some dates are in yellow. According to severe weather and tornadoes, the dates in green have lesser risk for that event. The dates in yellow have a medium risk for that event. And the dates in red are the more likely dates to have that event in particular. So if you're, for example, in the southern United States watching this, and you see that, for example, November 15th through the 17th is in red, chances are that there's a good chance that there may be a severe weather event in that part of the United States around those dates, 11/15 to 11/17. It could also happen during November 22nd through November 27th. And by the way, this is not 100%, it's not set in stone. It's kind of difficult to assign a percentage to these events happening, but usually in a powerful month like this, we're talking about maybe a 25% chance for this kind of event to happen during one of those periods. It's just something to keep in mind. This is something that is just a general outlook that we can make weeks in advance, and then when a weather event actually starts manifesting, then it becomes key to actually check back and see if there's risk dates coming up. There's actually a really good example I can talk about real quick, and it's also kind of backtracking a bit. But we just saw one of the greatest, and not in a good way, but one of the worst hurricane disasters that have ever occurred in the modern era this past October 25th, when Major Hurricane Otis, Category 5, exploded in intensity in just 24 hours as it neared land in Mexico. Basically, nobody saw this coming. A tropical storm that became a Category 5 hurricane in the matter of hours, destroying Acapulco, and a major city, a major tourist town in Mexico, completely destroyed. Take a look at this behemoth of a hurricane. This is how it looked when it struck land in Mexico. The eye went right over Acapulco. And you might be wondering, well, could this have been possibly foreseen in some way? I'm not going to say 100% yes, but take a look at the same chart that I made for October. And this is something I posted in X, not that long ago. I posted this actually right around the 15th of the month, because I put an arrow in the middle of the graph showing where we were at the time I posted this. But you can see that in the October Astro-Numerology chart, there was a peak on the 15th through the 19th, which fortunately, as far as I know, didn't really bring anything. But then the next real game in town was actually October 25th through the 31st. And this is where interpreting a chart comes into play. When looking at this, you can see that from October 24th, where it was actually below the gray horizontal line, we saw the risk jump tremendously up to level 9 on October the 25th, and it sustained there for a few days and then went back down. When I see a bunch of dates like that combined together, what I call a group risk-take period, October 25th through the 26th, 27th, 28th, and even further in, it usually tends to bring these weather disasters more often than, say, a short risk period like October 21st on this chart, or October 12th. Those tend to be more earthquake favoring. But also, at the beginning and ending of these risk periods, there could also be earthquakes, because there's sudden change there, like from the 24th to the 25th. But either way, that didn't happen. What ended up happening is, from the 24th to the 25th of October, right during that moment of rapid change upwards in risk, this hurricane blew up suddenly. It just exploded. And then it struck land, and its effects were there for days after. The hurricane dissipated, but the flooding did not. The next several days after the 25th of October, that area was just getting hammered with bad rains, flooding, and just the aftermath of the hurricane. So that's a possible interpretation that could have been, taken as. And if, anyone had been watching this storm and had that date of the 25th of October in mind, we would have been like, maybe we should keep a wary eye on this hurricane just in case it does something unexpected, considering it's getting close to being a really risky time. And, from the 24th, you can see it quickly jumped up to the 25th. And, during that 24th, you crossed the gray line anyway, because there's such a rapid change that even the 24th was affected to a point, which actually was how this hurricane blew up in the later part of the afternoon that day. So, yeah, there's a lot of weird applications that we can find with this astrology and numerology, but to make a perfect prediction, yeah, it's difficult. I'm not there yet. This is what I'm calling this an experimental forecast. I've been doing this for years, but I'm still trying to fine-tune it. But I just want to share with you guys, what's coming up ahead. So here we go again with November's chart. And now that I've more or less explained how I make these charts and what the yellow-orange line on the graph means, which is basically the total risk for the date, that's how we know where the date is risky or not. You can see there's 4 main risk periods in November. November 1st through the 2nd, which just passed. There were some flooding events I heard somewhere in Italy, but other than that, nothing more. But then we have this next upcoming risk period, which is pretty powerful. November 4th through the 11th. Then we have November 13th through the 20th. And then we have November 22nd through the 27th. So there's 3 separate events that can happen during each of these periods. And sometimes when a period is this powerful, like, well above level 9 on many of these dates, we can often see more than one event happen at the same time. And funny enough, on October 25th, the day we were just talking about, there was 4 tropical cyclones that were threatening to hit land on that same day. So it could have been any of these 4 that brought the disaster, and it ended up being the one in the East Pacific that did, the worst possible thing and just destroy Acapulco that day. Hopefully November is not going to bring anything similar to this, but we're still in the tropical cyclone season. Things should be quieting down in the Atlantic and the East Pacific, but the West Pacific comes to mind, which is what I'm about to show you right now. This is the chart map that I've made for tropics. November 2023's tropical cyclones. This is where we're most likely to see these events happen. And you can see that circled in red or squared in red, we have the Philippines and the islands east of there. And, just around the Philippines in general is the main risky area for tropical cyclones in November. And to a lesser degree, around Bangladesh and India and the Caribbean, possibly Central America. Should keep an eye out for possible tropical cyclones that become either hurricanes in the Caribbean or typhoons in the West Pacific. And at the bottom we have the dates. November 1st through the 3rd, November 4th through the 11th, and so on. And 11/4 through 11/11 is red, and 11/22 through 11/27 is red, and then yellow is 11/13 through 11/18. Those are the more likely days to feature tropical cyclones. Again, I'm not going to get too far in depth as to why those dates in particular were chosen or how these dates were chosen. It's just how I've learned to interpret the graph that I made for the Astro-Numerology chart of November, which is, that's how we come up with that. And then, last but not least, this is another really, really key moment. Earthquakes. This is the earthquake map for November 2023 and where we may see events. There's a lot of orange, there's a lot of red, but I don't want to get you guys too worried. I'm just trying to pinpoint and try not to leave out any areas that could have seismic risk this month. So generally the red is basically the more likely areas to see earthquakes of magnitude 6 plus this month. The areas in orange are medium risk for these kind of things, and then green and then blue are lesser risk for this event. Basically try to cover most of the world's seismic areas, and a lot of other things go into making this map. This one in particular, besides knowing the risk states that are at the bottom there with different colors, is also keeping up to date with recent earthquake activity. I do believe in how an earthquake can happen somewhere in the world and trigger more earthquakes in the same general area. Or sometimes a major earthquake happens in one part of the world and it just puts the whole world at unrest, making it likely for other seismic areas to wake up. For example, let's say Chile gets an earthquake, and I can say maybe Indonesia could get one in a few days when there's a big shift like that. Or, like what's been going on in the Middle East, Afghanistan had a lot of earthquakes in October as well. Morocco had a really bad one in September. So that area in general has been shaking a lot, and October was the most recent event in Afghanistan. So that's why I've got the whole Afghanistan, part of Iran in red right there, because that area has recently had earthquake activity. Morocco's in orange because it's already been 2 months since they had the quake, so risk is slowly going away. Chile is red because recently they had a 6.7 there. All of southern South America should be on watch just in case. Indonesia's in red because, well, it's Indonesia, the world's most seismic area in the world. Well, yeah, the world's most seismically active area is Indonesia. Almost always you're going to see me having that place in red, just as a precaution. Italy and the central Mediterranean, I decided to put it on red just in case because, as I explained a little while ago, it's the year of the rabbit, which is a really bad one for the Mediterranean area historically. There's been bad earthquakes in Morocco, bad earthquakes in Turkey, and Iran. Perhaps the central Mediterranean could get something soon, based on all the other events that have happened around there and the current cycle that we're in right now. Just as a precaution, I figured I'd put them in red. But again, don't freak out. Most likely, most of these places shaded in red are not going to have anything happen in November. But, again, this is why I say this is an experimental prediction. But take it as you will. Take it with a grain of salt. But this is currently my projects that I've been working on, these past few months. And let's see what happens. That's November. That's how it's looking. I mean, once again, here's the chart. You rarely see a chart more significant than this one right here. There's a lot of high intensity risk days in this month. And, what can I say? Let's just hope things go well for us around the world. I mean, the world could use a break from natural disasters. There's already a lot of other bad things going on right now. Last thing we need is another giant disaster to strike somewhere around here in this planet. So, but hopefully things will be okay. And that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this video. I'm not sure when I'll have another one up, but when I do, I'll let you guys know on X. And again, guys, thanks for watching. And remember, if you're in an area that has risk for severe weather or tropical cyclones, when those big risk dates are coming up, the ones that you see in the maps that I highlighted, just have those in mind and just keep up to date with your weather news. Just watch your local news on the days leading up to those days, just to make sure that everything's okay and no storms are brewing. And if you're in an earthquake risk area or an area that's seen earthquakes recently, keep these big risk dates in mind just in case, and try to have a plan of action in case an event happens in your neck of the woods, in your area. And it's just better to be prepared. Remember, don't be scared, be prepared. That's the main message here. And I hope that this video in some way can help people be aware of what could be coming in the near future and somehow influence, in a positive way, my viewers. And, hopefully you guys are able to find this useful in some way. And ultimately, I hope this can help save lives in the future. So I'm doing these projects here on YouTube and X. Alright, guys, so yeah, I've already gone to 24 minutes making this video. I was hoping to make it shorter, but it's a lot to cover, and there's a lot more that I haven't said. So, you might just learn here and there little tidbits of what I do with each coming video down the road. And feel free to look at past videos that I've made, because I've also made references to, numerology or astrology or stuff like that. But alright, guys, I won't take more time. Please be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Stay weather aware. And, let's hope this month is not as bad as it looks. There's always that chance that we can get lucky. And this is just disaster risk. It's not 100%. We might get lucky and November ends up being quiet. And I end up being wrong, which would actually be good. Because this is not the kind of prediction that I want to be right. Because, it's not a good thing for the world. but I feel the need to warn people about what may be coming. And I'll see you guys again soon, hopefully. Be safe out there, and happy holidays in advance. Goodbye.